Today, I'd like to speak to you about educational brand equity, which might be thought of as what distinguishes one product from a commodity and what allows a company to command a premium. To speak to how genuine value can be added to the Hopkins business brand, I need to explore the fundamental promise of education. And to do that, I'd like to start with a personal anecdote and then abstract upwards. So I remember during undergrad studying in the library, noticing a student we'll call Nikki. Nikki periodically utilized the provided computers in the library, but she always simultaneously had a personal laptop propped open and adjacent. Throughout undergrad, in fact, I had noticed this pattern, but I naively dismissed it as a kind of elaborate multitasking. But on further inspection, I realized that Nikki was using her laptop to Google the answers, for instance, on Quizlet or what have you, to whatever the Blackboard quiz or the test of the day. This was her means of completing her degree. And then I began to contemplate the bigger question, why was she pursuing the degree in the first place? Why are any of us, for that matter? Surely it's because we believe the degree will add value to our lives and perhaps to the lives of others if we can manage it. And so then I thought about what makes a degree valuable. Like money itself, a degree is a kind of currency that's fundamentally predicated on trust. What's being trusted seems to be that the diploma is reliable evidence of a degree of domain-specific expertise that's economically redeemable. So you might ask, what was Nikki doing that day? And one answer might be she was stealing from the promise of her own diploma, because she wanted to benefit from all the rights and privileges appertaining thereto, as is specified on the diploma, but without personally assuming any of the responsibility, which might be likened to sawing off the branch that you're seated on. While I don't expect anyone to jump to defend Nikki's academic integrity, I'd like to pivot and talk about what impact mandatory group work might have on the same fundamental bridge of trust. So what happens when group work is assigned? According to Professor Crane, the most common scenario that plays out is one in which the work is divided up among the members, and the resultant smorgasbord, that was the way Munter and Hamilton put it, lacks any coherence or consistency. In the typical group of 5 members, that means the individual grades are only 20% reflective of any given student's work, thereby deteriorating the promises of the diploma and the brand equity of the institution. So why does it persist? First, let's acknowledge the economic incentive. Educational institutions, if they assign group work, then they can reduce the marginal costs of grading to 1/5 of what individual assignments would be worth. Although more pernicious, however, long-term damage to brand equity may very well outweigh short-term profits. If so, the persistence of mandatory group work might risk the kind of short-term thinking that W. Edwards Deming warned about. The other argument is that group work helps prepare students for an increasingly networked economy. But how does this reconcile with the Brooks Law pitfall, which states that adding manpower to a late software project makes it later? See the appendix for more on that. My position is that the reconciliation relies on voluntarism. The sense and adjust and collaborative networks that are working so well for information goods are not mandatory. They're predicated on competence, and they're dependent on the reciprocal contribution of specialized value. So there's a couple of critical differences here that I want to address. First, I want to point out Jean Piaget, the great developmental psychologist, observed reciprocity in children and noted accordingly that the game that is played voluntarily, again, will always outperform the game that is mandated, because the prior doesn't accumulate enforcement costs. Second, the outsourcing of specialized competencies isn't obviously relevant in the MBA scenario, as we're all in the same class to learn the same information and develop the same competencies. For these reasons, it's not obvious to me that anyone wins when group work is mandated. Instead, it may actually sacrifice the strength of association between the degree bestowed and the knowledge and competencies promised in principle. While independent collaboration should surely be encouraged, educational brand equity stands to benefit by eliminating mandatory group work. Here's my first appendix and second, and my references. Thank you.